We're taking a look at the 2000s today, the best science fiction and fantasy novels of each year. Based on the data, not my opinion. Come see which of your favorites make the list. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. I'm Jim, the father of this channel, and I'm glad to have you here with me today as I look at some really great books. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. This is the next of a series where I started with the 1950s and been working my way through the years. If you've missed those previous ones, be sure to go back and look. If you're looking for the next ones after this, you're going to need to wait about a week. I've got some work things coming up. I'm not going to have time because these take a while. There's a lot of data to dig through. These top three from every year in the 2000s are not my opinion. I've put together a particular formula to look at the data, crunch the numbers, and figure out what should the top three be. The number one factor I'm looking at for this list is sales. Just how many of these books were sold. If they sold like hotcakes, they have a better chance to go up to number one. Second factor that's figured in, not as strongly as sales, but the second most strong, is awards. Did they get any critical recognition? Did they win any of the big awards, some small awards? Did they at least get nominated for awards, thus being considered some of the best literature of the year? After that, there's one more thing I take into place, sometimes the tiebreaker between what makes it and what doesn't, and that's the ratings and reviews that we fans have actually given these books. Taking all that into account, I have a definitive top three list according to these criteria. Some of your favorites are not going to make the list. Some of these books you're going to be ecstatic about. Whatever you think about them, share your thoughts in the comment box. I love hearing your experiences with books, and I always reply. Thanks. So let's get to this list. We'll start, of course, with the year 2000, and our third best book is one that some of you had responded, why didn't it show up in 1999? And that's because it wasn't as popular in 99 when it came out as it was in 2000, where it was getting some award buzz, and that was Cryptonomicon by Neil Stephenson. Science fiction of the historical techno-thriller variety. A standalone novel that was among the top science fiction novels of the decade. It won the Locus Award for Best Science Fiction Novel in 2000, and it was nominated for the Hugo Award. So significant sales, high-profile awards, and very strong reader reception locks in number 3 for 2000. Number 2 is Perdido Street Station by China Miéville, which is a really hard book to define. Fantasy, steampunk. Some people give it its own category of weird fiction. It's the first book of the Boss Log series and was a solid bestseller. It won the Arthur C. Clarke Award. No, that's for science fiction, but I just said it was fantasy. I know they don't know where to put it. It also won the British Fantasy Award, but it was also nominated for the British Science Fiction Award. It won the World Fantasy Award, the Locus, the Hugo, the Nebula, the Tiptree, and more. Really critically acclaimed book, and it's got great reviews from the readers. So it would have been number 1, except for what showed up in number 1. But Perdido Street Station, solid book. Number 1 was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Yes, this Harry Potter phenomenon. We're only halfway there. Book 4 of 7 in this young adult fantasy series by J.K. Rowling. 65 frickin' million copies is what this one has done. A huge success commercially. But it also won the 2001 Hugo Award, and then a number of other smaller awards, some of them just for young adult literature. It was also nominated for a Bram Stoker and a Locus Award. So lots of award recognition, powerful sales, and excellent reader ratings locks in the number 1. Just missing the podium for 2000, couple books to give a little love to. Darwin's Radio, a sci-fi novel by Greg Bear, and Stormfront, book 1 of the immensely popular Dresden Files urban fantasy series by Jim Butcher. In 2001, we have a book that I talked about in the 90s because I was wrong. But number 3 is A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin. It really hit its stride when it was released in 2001 in the United States, but it had originally been released in 2000 in the United Kingdom. Either way, it didn't show up in 1999. Now, I didn't have it in the top 3 in 99. I just had it as one of those just almost making the awards, and I was jumping the gun. No, nothing for this book shows up in 99. But when A Storm of Swords did show up, especially with its US release, went multi-million in sales. It was riding the wave of being the third book of a very popular series, of course. And then when HBO's stuff is coming out, the sales just continue to rocket. It also did get a Locus Fantasy Award nomination, and that doesn't hurt. Massively influential epic fantasy series with huge reader enthusiasm and a little bit of award buzz. It's worthy of getting the number 3. Number 2 is The Quantum Rose by Catherine Asaro. This is interesting. Science fiction, but the smaller subgenre is romantic hard sci-fi. Romantic hard. Yeah, I'm not that kind of podcast. Get your minds out of the gutter. Space opera variety. The series it's a part of is the Saga of the Skolian Empire, where it's book 5 in publication order. It won the Nebula Award for Best Novel in 2001, has been highly celebrated in science fiction circles, and really has a dedicated fan base. So I felt number 2 is where the data puts it. But number 1 is way above the 2 books I've mentioned already, and that was American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Fantasy, mythic fantasy subgenre. American Gods is book 1 of 2 in a series. Widely regarded as a bestseller, and Goodreads shows how popular it is. It's got over 1 million ratings. 1 million. There's not that many books that cross the million threshold on Goodreads. So high readership. For awards, it cleaned up, people. The 2002 Hugo, the 2002 Nebula, and the 2002 Locus for Best Fantasy Novel. Took them all. Long-term sales, multiple major genre awards, and strong reader approval. Nothing else could touch number 1. I know Neil Gaiman has kind of fallen out of popularity due to life choices that have come to see the air, but that doesn't change the quality of the books. And this was a big one in 2001. Painfully, just missing out of the top 3 is Memories of Ice, book 3 of Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson, which I absolutely love. I'm a big Malazan fan. Pay attention, you might see Malazan again at some point. And Pattern Recognition by William Gibson, a sci-fi novel. In 2002, we start off the third one being The Skinner by Neil Asher. Science fiction techno thriller, which gets you going. The Skinner. Ooh, I mean, just look at that cover. Strong sales amongst hard sci-fi readers. It led to a popular trilogy. Got a lot of praise in critical circles, and the fans have rated it pretty well on all platforms. So I'll give it number 3, slightly less recognition than the other 2 books getting highlighted this year, which is number 2, Light by M. John Harrison, science fiction of a space opera variety. This is book 1 of the Kefahuchi Tract trilogy. You try saying that, Kefahuchi. It's an interesting name, if I'm saying it right. It was well reviewed and respected, with steady readership, critically lauded, didn't take home any awards, but recognized as one of the best books of the year on many lists, so it gets number 2. Number 1, Altered Carbon. This is by Richard K. Morgan, a cyberpunk mystery science fiction novel. Book 1 of the Takeshi Kovacs trilogy. Again, some of these words, I don't know how to say them for sure. This was a major bestseller in sci-fi circles, and then Netflix went ahead and made an adaptation that you might have seen, which helped sales rocket up again. Then Netflix inexplicably canceled the series too early because they're Netflix. This book was nominated for several genre awards, including almost winning the Philip K. Dick Award. Strong, enduring sales, sustained reader acclaim, and a little bit of award buzz gets it number 1 in a year that maybe wasn't as strong as some of the other years for the decade. On the outside looking in is The Scar, book 2 of the Boss Log series by China Mielville. Let's move on to 2003, where we start out with the third best book being The Briar King by Greg Keyes, an epic fantasy novel that's book one of the Kingdoms of Thorn and Bone Quartet. Strong debut novel, great sales for this book, kicking off a series, and showed up on a lot of year end polls as one of the best fantasy books of the year. Didn't win any awards, but it was pretty popular with fans. Didn't reach the blockbuster status of some of the others that we'll talk about, but still was good enough to clean up on number three. The second best book of the year is Speed of Dark by Elizabeth Moon, a near future science fiction novel, hard sci fi for the most part. It gained popularity in science fiction readership circles, especially after it took home the Nebula Award for Best Science Fiction Novel of 2003 and was a finalist for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. So, well regarded amongst sci fi readers, generally positive reception, and the ratings across all platforms pretty decent. It definitely gets second place, but nowhere close to what comes in first place in this year, which is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. J.K. Rowling comes in with the fifth of her seven young adult fantasy novels in this series. It's one of the best-selling titles of the year across all genres. It's got over 3.6 million ratings on Goodreads. People really love this book. It was recognized with multiple young adult award prize nominations, though I didn't find that it actually won anything. It was a darling of a lot of the lists. But unmatched commercial success and the cultural impact Harry Potter as a series has had, and the continued acclaim by readers, so many of you grew up in these Harry Potter books, yeah, it's a dominant number one. Just outside the top three this year is Umbria in Shadow by Patricia A. McKillop. In 2004, we've got at number three, Ilium by Dan Simmons, a science fiction novel of the space opera variety. Standalone novel at the time it came out, but Simmons goes on and writes Olympus later on that is tied into Ilium. This was a major release from an established best-selling author. He had already done his Hyperion Cantos that won awards and was very popular. So yes, people were going to buy this book, especially those in the sci-fi market. It won the 2004 Locus Award for Best Science Fiction Novel, which also did not hurt its sales. So you got this powerful blend of author visibility, award recognition, and positive reader ratings to land it firmly at number three. For number two, we've got Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. This is science fiction fantasy, so it's kind of a genre mashup, a standalone novel that had blockbuster success, which was enhanced by a film adaptation that did really well all over the world. I think it actually did better outside the United States than inside. It was a major chart climber over the years. Regarding awards, well, the British Book Awards Literary Fiction winner. It was also a Nebula and Arthur C. Clarke nominated book. It had real crossover appeal. It wasn't just one genre or the other, so a lot of popularity and then some buzz in the awards circuit, and then that movie gets thrown in. Yeah, it rose pretty strongly to number two. But number one, different category, is Paladin of Souls by Lois McMaster Buchhold. We have seen her on these lists before, but this is epic fantasy that she's given us from her World of the Five Gods series. But it's not the first book, it's book two. It had great sales, which really took off during award season because it won the 2004 Hugo, the 2004 Nebula, and the 2004 Locus Award for Best Fantasy Novel. That is quite the grand slam. When you add in the high readership ratings and strong word of mouth for this book, getting people to read this series, yeah, it was a clear number one. One almost for this year is Going Postal, the 33rd Discworld book by Sir Terry Pratchett. I had to give it some love because it's the 33rd book and finally one has enough of the pieces come together to almost make the top three. So a little love for Discworld. Let's move on to 2005, where for number three, we get a little military science fiction with Old Man's War by John Scalzi. This is book one of the six-book Old Man's War series. It was an impressive debut novel and quickly became a bestseller amongst those who are into military sci fi for certain. And that's a pretty popular subgenre. It won the 2006 Hugo Award for Best Novel, which also did not hurt its sales. Very positive reception, and across Goodreads and Amazon, very strong ratings. You put all that together with a Hugo, and yeah, number three. But then there's more, there's better, sure enough. Number two in this year is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clark. This is historical fantasy and alternate history, a standalone novel that came out in 2004, but awards were going on and sales were peaking all through 2005. Over 1 million copies sold worldwide. It was a breakout bestseller by Susanna Clark. Speaking of awards, it won the Hugo for Best Novel in 2005. It was the World Fantasy Award winner in 2005, and it won the Locus Award. A remarkable combo of massive sales, multi top tier genre awards, and solid ratings gives it number two. Only number two? Yeah, there's still that Harry Potter thing going on. So number one goes to Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. Young adult fantasy, book 6 of 7 of the Harry Potter series. This book broke sales records with 9 million copies sold within 24 hours. That's not a typo. 11 million copies sold in the first 9 weeks, and the sales went on and on and on. It got the 2006 British Book of the Year Award and many other award nominations and accolades. Extremely well rated across all platforms, garnered significant literary recognition for what Rowling was doing in this series, a solid number one. Just outside the top three, a little love for A Feast of Crows, Book 4 by George R.R. Martin in A Song of Ice and Fire, and Camouflage, science fiction novel by Joe Haldeman. For 2006, I finally get to give some love to Malazan. For real! Number 3 is The Bone Hunters, Book 6 of 10 of Stephen Erickson's Malazan Book of the Fallen. A high epic fantasy style, and what a book. The Malazan series had sold over 250,000 copies by 2006, to which The Bone Hunters is adding its numbers. It won no awards, it wasn't even nominated for anything that I could find, but it was still fairly well recognized as a quality piece of fiction. It's got a passionate fan base. I mean, the Malazan people come at you strong in the best ways. And when it came to sales, it was really only trailing the genre giants. If it had some awards, it would have been higher on this list. But number 2 on the list is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Epic fantasy of a heist variety. This is book 1 of the Gentleman Bastard series, which is an ongoing series, stalled out at this time, but more books are eventually expected. One of the most successful fantasy debuts of 2006. Tons of sales, lots of ratings. Fans love this book. It won the Science Fiction Site Reader's Choice Award in 2006, and it was a finalist for the World Fantasy Award, the Locust Award, the John W. Campbell Award, and the British Fantasy Award. So lots of buzz in the award circles. This explosive debut with high reader praise and strong genre award presence puts it just below what took number 1 for the year. And what took number 1 is Spin by Robert Charles Wilson. A hard science fiction novel, leans into the time drama subgenre. This is book 1 of the Spin trilogy. Not a mass market blockbuster, actually, but it built a slow, dedicated readership over time and is now extremely well read. But it did get the Hugo Award for 2006 and was nominated for the John W. Campbell and the Locus Awards. So top tier within science fiction of 2006, and a prestigious award, excellent reader reception, sustained popularity. That's how you get number 1 on a year that didn't necessarily have something to knock us all out of the park. Just missing the podium in 2006 was The Ghost Brigades by John Scalzi. Since I mentioned Old Man's War previously as being in the top 3, This is the follow up and was almost in the top three. So the series is doing well. Also, almost reaching the top three was Seeker, a sci fi novel by Jack McDevitt, book three of his Alex Benedict series. Moving on to 2007, our third best is His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. First time we've mentioned her on any of these. This is a fantasy novel of the alternate history subgenre and is book one of her Temeraire series. It was a New York Times bestseller and launched this widely popular series. It won the Compton Crick Award of 2007, specifically the best first novel by an author, which would explain why we haven't heard her in the series before. Also was a nominee for the Hugo Award in 2007. So a breakout fantasy debut with strong awards and highly rated reception. That's a good way to break onto the list and get the number three. Number two goes to The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Heroic fantasy. That's one way. I mean, it's hard to figure out what to pin down The Name of the Wind as. It's definitely fantasy. It's part of the King Killer Chronicle. Just in the first year, over 800,000 copies were sold in Spain. Yeah, just one country that I got that stat from. Subsequently, it passed over 10 million sales worldwide. This is an extremely popular novel, even with some people holding out because they want to wait till the series is done. Now, it's still got tons of people reading it. And the critics have noticed as well. It won the Quill Award for Science Fiction Fantasy Horror in 2007. Publishers Weekly gave it the Best Book of the Year in 2007. Amazon listed it on its Best Books of 2007 from Sci-Fi and Fantasy. And it got a nomination for the Locus Award in 2008. So a hugely best-selling debut novel by Patrick Rothfuss sustained blockbuster sales. I mean, it still is selling well. Some literary recognition in the award circle and great reader ratings. Why is it only number two? Because we've got to finish the Harry Potter series, people. Number one is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling, the conclusion of this young adult fantasy series. This has the record of the fastest selling book in history on release day. 8.3 million copies flew off the shelves in the US alone, and 2.65 million in the UK within the first 24 hours. 15 million sold worldwide that first day. That's just mind-boggling. It won the American Library Association's Best Book for Young Adults Award and got multiple literary nods across the spectrum of the award circuit. Exceptionally high ratings on Goodreads and Amazon. It's one of those books, if you bash it, people are going to come at you. The series as a whole has sold over 600 million copies. It's got a lot of love. So number one for being unmatched in sheer sales and global cultural impact, plus the strong reader reception. The Almost Club in 2007, I got two books that just didn't quite make the list, but they were so close. The Yiddish Policeman's Union by Michael Chabon. I just love that name, the Yiddish Policeman's Union. And Rainbow's End by Werner Vinge. For 2008, we start out the third best as Anathema by Neil Stephenson. Science fiction of a philosophical hard sci-fi style. This was a standalone, large sales in the UK and the US, supported by Stephenson being an established high-quality author. It was nominated for major science fiction accolades like the Hugo Award, the Campbell Award, but it did not take home any of the trophies. So some critical acclaim, highly rated amongst readers, strong sales, especially amongst the hard sci-fi circuit, locks in number three. For number two, I bring you Little Brother, a book I'd not heard of before this, but the data points me here. This is by Cory Doctorow. It's a sci-fi techno thriller and is technically book one of more to come. It was a strong genre hit, a major success for indie techno thrillers. It was a finalist or shortlisted for all of the prestigious science fiction awards, though it did not win any of them. It's a cult favorite with excellent engagement, awards buzz, solid ratings. Readers just love this book if they're into this particular subgenre. But number one gives us an excellent example of timing. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Young adult dystopian fantasy. This is book one of the Hunger Games series. And I'm telling you, someone at a publishing firm should have got a huge bonus. Harry Potter's done. Time to roll this out. And it just scoops in and takes up that same audience, hungry for more. Phenomenal debut with over 9 million Goodreads ratings, blockbuster global sales on this book. For awards, it got the 2008 Sybil's Award for Speculative Fiction. That's a YA category. And it also was recognized in the YA category of the Locus Awards, the Inky, the Hal Clement, other awards that I'm not really familiar with. They're more the small scale ones, but it was getting talked about. Sheer cultural impact of this book was huge. Again, there's an audience for high quality young adult fiction that adults will dig as well. And then you get some prestigious award recognitions, reader ratings through the roof. This one was a solid number one. Oh, and they made a movie. You might have heard of it. That didn't hurt the sales. Just missing the podium in 2008 due to not getting quite as much recognition despite strong sales was The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, the final book in his original Mistborn trilogy. We finished this decade with 2009, and we start off with the third best, being a little odd, Blood of Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. Epic fantasy, Slavic mythology inspires this. It's book 4 of the Witcher series. Why it's a little odd is it was originally published back in the 90s in Polish. It was translated into English finally in 2009, and it was a huge success. It was actually the first Witcher novel officially released in English and launched The Witcher's widespread popularity, led to millions in sales globally via books, video games, and adaptations. I mean, Netflix, this one they haven't canceled, and maybe should have by now. We'll see what this next season will be like, but I've enjoyed what Netflix has brought to the screen. It did win the David Gemmell Legend Award for 2009 Best Novel. So a landmark English entry that drove massive international sales and won a major fantasy award grabs number 3. Number 2 is Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, her follow-up novel in the dystopian science fantasy YA series. Blockbuster sales are indicated clearly when Goodreads already had 3.9 million ratings for this book by 2009's end. They were just loving Catching Fire and loving this series. It won the 2009 Goodreads Choice Award for science fiction. Vast commercial phenomenon, strong reader awards and ratings. It could have been number 1 for the year, except for one thing that sat there above it, which was The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, a fantasy novel that's young adult gothic fantasy. That's a little different, like Neil Gaiman's writing. This debuted with strong mainstream success and has had long-term staying power in sales. It won the 2009 Hugo Award for Best Novel, widely praised by readers and critics alike. Being a major award winner with enduring popularity, strong sales in both adult and YA markets, it was a cleanup for the number 1. Just outside the top 3, okay, there were a lot of good books getting love in 2009, so I'll point out The Magicians by Lev Grossman, first of the trilogy, Dust of Dreams, book 9 of Malazan Book of the Fallen, The Year of the Flood by Margaret Atwood, and The Way of Shadows, book 1 of the Night Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks. All of these were super popular, and the data had them almost in the top 3. Wow. All right, that's what I have for you now. And that's what you're going to have to sit with for a week before I can get back and finish this series. But what do you think about these books? A lot of you were active readers already in the 2000s. Are there books that you absolutely adored and you thought were super popular that I did not mention? Use the comment box and give them some love. And do you have any experiences to share, thoughts about the particular books that did get highlighted? Put them down in the comment box. Also, look down in the show notes for other ways you can interact with Zach and I. An invitation to our Discord server is sitting there for you, our social media links, our email, and even our Patreon page, We thank all of you who faithfully support us on Patreon each month, and we invite any of you who are enjoying this content, become a Patreon supporter and help us keep this coming out. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying the series. We'll see where it goes for the end. We'll talk to you next time.